Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Roger Carson opening the show this week for Poddywood, episode 32, featuring Brian Krause, who will be with us a little bit later on. Now, you may be wondering, hang on a minute, this is a bit out of the ordinary. Usually, Steve Hester opens the show. Well, unfortunately, he is on the co host duty where he is basically not up to starting the show. And why is that, Steve?
I've been relegated. Not through choice. I have on Friday. I tested positive for the COVID-19. Ooh,
That's typical Steve fashion, doing it late.
yes.
Yes,
It was fashionable last year, and I'm only doing it now. It's
I
like
know.
Instagram.
It's like getting the Black Friday sale of last year's stock of COVID,
A
and
little
you
bit,
bought
yeah.
it all up, baby. You bought it all up. But yes, I think it goes without saying, we're all behind you, Steve. We know you're going to pull through. You'll be fine, just in time for Christmas.
Yeah, you're all behind me because you know that if you're in front of me, I'll end up coughing on you.
This is very true.
Yeah,
So we're behind you at arm's length,
in a hazmat
pointing
suit.
your face in the opposite direction. Cough that way into
Yes.
Salford, where you probably got it from.
Oh, I know exactly where I actually got it from. I got it from my girlfriend's youngest daughter. It's going to go around the house eventually now, so let's just bring it all on. And yeah,
Hey, herd immunity.
I've just got plain old boring COVID. It's not the Unicron variant, It's not the Planet Eater. No.
Well, the best thing is you can just rest up and edit all of these final episodes that we've got coming up.
Yeah,
But you wouldn't believe we're about to end 2021, but instead we're going to go back to 2001, A Space
mm.
Odyssey, which is what Steve got from What's in the Box last week.
Yes, I did. Stanley Kubrick's 1968.
Yeah.
Wow. God, that's old. 1968 movie, 2001 Space Odyssey, which is pretty much nowadays considered the sacred calf of science fiction.
Yes.
And watching it, you can see why. There's definitely a lot of headiness going on there, looking at, where we came from and where we possibly would be going to. And there's all kinds of moments in there that you look at it and you think, wow, I can definitely see where George Lucas got some of his inspiration
Oh,
from.
yeah.
I can see where this sci-fi pulled that particular image from, or this, that, and the other. And it's one of those movies, just like with Taxi Driver, that has been pastiched and parodied and paid homage to in one way or another for the better part of the last 50 years or so.
Yeah.
I mean, this predates the actual moon landings by a
which
good
is even
year.
more incredible.
Yeah. So there's tons of stuff in there which, in terms of visual effects, looks great. However, and this isn't going to win me any followers, and probably see me ostracized from any kind of Hollywood party in the future, I feel the need to slaughter this sacred calf.
Oof.
Oof, indeed.
You s- You're starting on the wrong foot this week, Steve. This is dangerous territory.
I am. All the sympathy that I got up from my COVID positive result is now just going to get washed away. The fact of the matter is that while I'm sure this was insanely influential at the time, what you effectively have is a 2.5 hour long music video for Stanley Kubrick's favorite classical musical hits, and one of the slowest pieces of sci-fi
Like your delivery, basically, this week.
ever. It really is. I mean, the opening, there's like 2.5, 3 minutes of just a black screen at the very beginning with just an atonal noise on over the top of it. And I think there's, out of the entire runtime of the movie, there's only probably about 40 minutes of worth of scenes which actually have any kind of dialogue in them. everything is so slow and ponderous, and I absolutely recognize the need for building up suspense and pacing, and sometimes you don't need dialogue in order to be able to sell a scene. I understand that totally, but everything is just so slow and self-indulgent, and it just feels like, and I'm going to have to bleep this out, it just feels like Kubrick onto the screen. Look at me, look how good I am, I can make this movie, oh, aren't I great, oh, wonderful, yes.
You mean kind of like the way Christopher Nolan does now?
Yeah, yeah. It's a, what is it, it's a shit in the can. You know,
Oh,
there's
oh,
there's a
oh,
for
oh, Steve, I'm going to spare you.
no,
Stop. You're going to
it's
get
a
bombarded.
tampon in a teacup.
Oh,
I can see how this has influenced countless generations of sci-fi makers and fantasists, and it had the brain of Arthur C. Clarke behind it as well, who basically foretold the entirety of modern technology. But in terms of an actually enjoyable movie, it's just no, no. I thought it was long, it was boring, it was so slow and badly paced. And even when it actually got to the point where you've got the famous scene where they're trying to shut down Hal and he's taking over the ship, I was just bored to
accompanied
tears.
by accompanied by Stanley Kubrick's own breathing.
Yeah,
Steve,
go
I'm
on,
not
tell
saying
me
you're
where I'm
wrong.
wrong.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying you're not right. You are basically tearing pages out of the movie Bible and wiping your ass with it.
I'm sorry, I am. Look, my whole purpose on the show is to be the everyman who comes
Yeah.
in and sees a movie and just says what he feels. Now, I'm not a movie scholar. I'm not as well educated in films as you are. I just watch a film and go, did I enjoy this? Did I not? It's simple. I didn't go to movie school. I can't break things down that well. I just watch a movie and think, did this work for me as a film? Yes or no? Didn't work for me as a movie. I'm sorry.
Maybe you're thinking it's longer. Did you know that a total footage shot was 200 times the final length of the film?
It felt like that watching it. I'm
Because,
not going to lie.
I mean,
It really
you're
did.
here, you're watching Kubrick. This is the guy who's done A Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, Eyes
Hmm.
Wide Shut, which you watched for the first time
Yeah.
the other week. I guess you would have been one of the, well, I guess you would have been the 242nd person who walked out of the premiere, probably right arm in arm with Rock Hudson.
Well, probably, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've seen a number of Kubrick's films, and Eyes Wide Shut and this has added to that. You know, I thought Doctor Strangelove was brilliant, and I even said that the first half of Full Metal Jacket, brilliant, absolutely intoxicating. Less said about the second half, the better. We've been over that. The Shining. I know Stephen King hated it, but I thought that was a great movie. I
Yeah.
thought that was brilliant. But this, just for me, just didn't work. I've seen better paced sci-fi. I've seen more interesting sci-fi. I've seen almost equally indulgent sci-fi like Blade Runner. That's quite self-indulgent at times as well. Yet it still manages to be appealing and tense and
You sound like one of those executives at MGM who was practically prepared to pull the movie on release because they thought it was just a dud. But it was actually the theater owners who told them that no, hang on a minute, stoners are coming to watch this movie and they're absolutely loving it. And they're turning out in droves.
I'm not surprised at the end. Like about the last half hour of the movie is just one great big acid trip.
Yeah, and the first 25 minutes of the movie is completely dialogue free.
Yeah, made up of some terrible makeup effects.
In the day, they were cutting edge. Come on.
It was like about the year before Planet of the Apes or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably. It was
Yeah.
something like that. Wasn't that far off. But I mean, what you're looking at here, I mean, these are classic. They were the greatest effects in film history. I think they still hang up when you kind of look at them through the time capsule of like when they were made, which predates when we were even born.
Yeah.
right? Predates Star Wars and everything. They are the greatest effects in film history. The cinematography, I think, is amazing, and I love the music as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I love
so
the music apart from that atonal stuff which goes on for half an hour at a time.
Ridian,
Yeah.
have you entered the room?
I've
But
got to agree with you about the special effects, though. Some of the
yeah.
special effects work in that. It's superb.
Do you know the sad thing about it is all of those ships were found in basically a dump around the corner of the actual studio. They were
Really?
left out there for decades, all of those ships. Some of them went onto proper ruin. They were just dumped there on the studio lot.
And they just
How
weren't thrown
crazy is
away
that?
for decades.
Yeah, they were just dumped. Some people actually found some of the pieces of them, like the big wheel style ship. I don't know what the thing like centrifuge type ship.
Like
They
space
found
station.
that out in a yard. Yeah, the space station. So they found that actually, and they got a picture of it, and it was like proper worn away, but it was still, recognizable.
Huh.
So, not a fan of 2001: A Space Odyssey, then.
No. It's I can see why it's influential, and without that, a lot of the sci-fi that came after it either wouldn't exist or would have been a lot poorer because of it. But for me, it's kind of like the Beatles. It was fine for the time, but other things have come along and done it far better afterwards.
And on that note,
I
I
don't
think we
care
need to
this
go into.
week.
Yeah, I think we need to get into some anniversaries on something lighter and more up your alley.
Who
We watch them again all of the time, or we get them on Prime for free. But we only know how old they are when we learn their anniversary.
Well, we did have a very good listenership.
we
And
did.
if you're still with us, if those people in the industry are still listening to us, you probably won't be after we start these anniversaries.
There's probably
Because
people out there that are listening that thought, "Oh, I'm glad that he had the balls to say it."
yes, didn't want to get ostracized from the film loving community. Okay, well, let's notch things up a bit because we are in the Christmas period. So naturally, you're going to think the anniversaries are kind of Christmas orientated, but they're definitely family orientated. And I'm sure that you've seen probably most of these, Steve. So let's start. 25 years ago this week, Jingle All the Way was released. Turbo Dime. Yes, the movie that was directed by Brian Levant with the credit of the Flintstones on his CV, which could have said probably quite a lot. And then again, he did go on to make more films later on in life. He did. I know he kind of got ostracized from the filmmaking community for Jingle All the Way, but he did actually go on to make a Jackie Chan movie called The Spy Next Door. I think it was only about 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, but this is the movie, obviously, where Arnold Schwarzenegger has to find a Turbo Man toy for his son during Christmas, where he is chased by a postman played by Sinbad, who was actually originally supposed to be Joe Pesci.
That makes sense.
It would make sense, yeah. He was the original choice, but then apparently, because Joe Pesci is really small in comparison to Arnold Schwarzenegger, they didn't want to make it like a Danny DeVito style situation, because every comedy that Arnie had done at that point was with Danny DeVito.
I would love to have seen that Joe Pesci just coming up to Schwarzenegger's belt line and still acting the little angry man. Well, you got a toy? Well, you got a toy? Does that toy amuse you? If I'm right, isn't the boy, isn't his son played by Haley Joel Osment?
No, funnily enough, it's Jake Lloyd, and you should know that.
That's it. I knew it was someone that was in a big film that came out around about 2000.
Yes, the Phantom Menace, the original Anakin.
Yeah.
The thing about Jingle All the Way, it's a joke family movie based around a very real life kind of craze that happened in the 80s with the Cabbage Patch Dolls. And then in 1996, the year the movie was released, funnily enough, the exact same thing started happening with the Elmo craze when everyone was after a Tickle Me Elmo and
Yeah.
fights were breaking out in the stores. It's like Black Friday to the extreme. Have you ever had your ass kicked over an Elmo? Jesus, imagine having that.
Elmo said go to hospital.
I mean, it's a fairly disturbing movie, actually. I watched it again just recently because it's on Disney Plus, and I never realized like how sinister it is when there's mail bombs in the movie.
Oh yeah. It was the innocent time of the 1990s where you could get away with stuff like that.
Yeah, when postal bombs were considered comedy. But also you've got little cameos from Jim Belushi is in there as a Santa Claus trying to sell him a knockoff version of Turbo Man, who also has not only a tiny little elf played by Vern Troyer, but also has a gigantic Santa played by the Big Show himself, Paul White, which,
Oh
which is
yes,
nuts
you're
to think about.
absolutely right. Yeah, for some reason I
Yeah,
was thinking Tiny Lister again.
yeah. And one of the greatest things about this that I only realized in watching it the other day, there's the scene where Arnie gets picked up in like a tow truck
Yeah.
and he gets dropped off somewhere. And I looked at the female driver and I was like, she looks really familiar. And then I Googled her, and funnily enough, the actress who was driving the tow truck was the first Sarah Connor in the Terminator that he shot.
No.
Yeah. And I was like, that's just an interesting little bit of trivia that would go over the heads of most people.
Oh my
Uh,
god. That's
but yeah,
great.
Jingle All the Way. It's just calm. It's just one of those Christmas movies that's really inoffensive now. At the time, it was like this huge like disappointment, and it became the butt of so many jokes because it was Jingle All the Way. And over the years, it's kind of gained a bit of a cult following to the point where it's now really acceptable to kind of really like this movie. I guess it's the kids who have grown up when they saw Jingle All the Way when they were kids, and now they've just got a bit of warm feeling about the movie.
Yeah, a
And
bit
when I watched it, it
nostalgic.
was like Arnie is, Arnie is Arnie, and he proper Arnie's this movie. And Sinbad wasn't bad in it either. I've got to admit, it's one of those films that is kind of inoffensive now.
Yeah. I've got nothing really else to add to that. I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It is one of the Arnie comedies of the 90s. It's not particularly fantastic, but it still has that kind of weird warm spot where you shouldn't actually like it, but you kind of find yourself enjoying it anyway.
Yeah, you're going to watch it at some point this Christmas, right? Because it's there, and you're going to run out of all the other Christmas movies and all those shitty Hallmark movies with the sweater brigade and where the girl's always seemingly wearing red top. And Jingle All the Way is there, and you'll have a bit of fun with it. That's Christmas for you.
Yeah.
Can you believe, Steve?
Yes.
15 years ago this week, Happy Feet was released.
Oh, it's strangely dark penguin movie, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd give it that. But considering it was directed by George Miller, who directed all those Mad Max movies, I'm not surprised.
That is such a weird choice of director.
Well, he actually directed Babe as well, which is also pretty dark when his mum's getting like taken away to become bacon.
I know. I mean, what next is going to happen? Oh yeah, we've got a reboot of Bambi directed by Tobe Hooper.
That'd be interesting, seeing as though Tobe Hooper's no longer with us.
Yeah,
but,
I know, but
I wouldn't put it past it. It is Hollywood after all.
They'll make him digital.
There's some strange little things about Happy Feet here, and I know that the movie gets a lot of hate from people, right? And it gets mocked quite a lot. And I don't know where that hate comes from, because I actually think it's a really nice little movie, and I like it. But there's some interesting things here. I mean, this was the best animated movie Oscar winner.
Really?
For one. So it's an Oscar-winning movie for best animated movie. And on top of that, I always wonder how Nicole Kidman feels about this movie, considering it is the highest grossing film in Nicole Kidman's entire career.
I bet
Can you imagine that?
She's probably at home thinking, that won all the money and I didn't even have to take my clothes off for it.
I know. If she's somehow listening to this show, she's going to be going through her entire season. That cannot be right. That cannot be right. Days of Thunder must have made more than this. Oh, shit. No, Happy Feet actually did make the most money of my career. And it was also Steve Irwin's last movie.
I'd forgotten he was even in it.
Yeah, he had a small role, and he unfortunately passed on. And also, Brittany Murphy also passed on not long after this movie came out, which is why she was replaced in the second one with a different actress.
Oh.
But the strangest thing I always find about this movie is all of the dancers who were kind of motion captured for it had to go to penguin school.
Did they also have to wear those kind of dead low-crotched pants like Dick Van Dyke wore in the dance sequence in Mary Poppins?
That'd be interesting if they did. There must be footage somewhere. It might be worth getting the DVD just so you can actually see the special features to see if they went there. Yeah, so Happy Feet is 15 years old this week.
It feels longer for some reason. Anyway, what have you got next?
Okay, can you believe, Steve? 10 years ago this week, Puss in Boots was released.
I haven't seen this one.
You haven't?
I haven't seen this one, no. I've seen the other Shrek movies, I've just not seen this one.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think this is awesome. I love Puss in Boots, which is surprisingly, because its director, Chris Miller, the only other thing that he directed prior to this was Shrek the Third. Admittedly, not the standout Shrek movie from all of them, in my view.
Is that Miller as in Lord and Miller?
Chris Miller, yeah, you know what? It might be.
Or is that another Miller?
Be. Oh, is it the Chris Miller who did Surf's Up, I wonder? That was Chris Miller as well, wasn't it?
Don't know.
I don't know. I didn't even look into the research on that. But I can tell you who he is, though. Did you know that Chris Miller actually also voices Kowalski in The Penguins of Madagascar?
Right. I'm going to have to look into this.
You are going to have to look into this. The thing about Puss in Boots, amazingly, something that I didn't know, this movie took 7.5 years in development.
Why so long?
Well, the character debuted in Shrek 2, which was 2004, which is kind of weird because Puss in Boots.
Yes,
there you go.
The Sean
Connery is brought in again. Yes. Puss in Boots is the only character from the Shrekiverse, I guess you call it, to get a movie of his own.
Well, the only movie that can be shown to children. The Donkey Dragon workout video, that was strictly adults only.
As well as Take My Gumdrop Buttons by the Gingerbread Man. Hey, we got the laugh out of you.
Don't make me laugh, please. Don't make me laugh right now.
Yeah, Puss in Boots, I actually love it. And you should actually watch it, actually. It'll cheer you up over the Christmas period. And the movie does actually have 2 records to its name. One, it is the highest grossing Halloween weekend opening of all time.
Okay, now that's a very strange time to release a kids' movie.
It is. And it knocked off Saw 3, which was the previous record holder.
Jesus.
I reckon more kids probably went to see Saw 3. But unfortunately, it also has another record, which is for the smallest non-holiday second weekend drop for a film in a saturated release of 2,500 theatres. So that means it's also the fastest dropping movie on a second weekend.
Well, do you know what the actual figures were, or
no? That's talking money, and I don't have any, so it's even more depressing. But put it in this, Puss in Boots is a brilliant movie. I really love it. Antonio Banderas is great as Puss in Boots. You can tell just his voice. He is loving this. It is basically his take back to Zorro, because it is a pure riff on Zorro. Yeah, it's one you should watch over the holiday period. It'll cheer you up.
I probably will do. The kids are currently going through a thing of rewatching Mitchells versus the Machines 24/7 on repeat. So
nice.
Eventually, when they get past that, we'll put Puss in Boots on.
Having kids is a joy, aren't they?
Oh,
anyway, so for our last one, I know this is one you want to talk about.
Go on.
Let's talk 30 years ago this week. Hot Shots was released.
Oh, yay.
Yay. Directed by Jim Abrams, not David Zucker.
Yes.
Jim Abrams directed it, but Jim Abrams did direct On Airplane and Top Secret and Police Squad as well. So he was the member of Zaz, along with David and Jerry. And it was funny kind of doing the research for this, because I actually went to the cinema to see this when it came out, and remember that pretty much Sky Movies had ruined pretty much every good joke in the movie by showing it on previews. for like a whole month. So it didn't feel like I had seen anything new when I did go to see it.
I hate it when movies
Yeah.
get ruined like that. I really do. There's no need.
No.
Especially if it's the movie studio that's putting out spoilers in the trailer. Or
Yeah.
all the good jokes. Stop that.
I'm not going to spoil it here, but Warner Brothers put out the theatrical trailer for the 1998 movie The Negotiator with Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey. And if you watch that trailer, I'm not going to say, but the very last line gives away one of the major things in the entire movie. It's like, why did you just tack that on there? Right. Why? You've just give away one of the biggest plot twists of the entire movie in one line. But if you want to go and look at it, that's your choice. I have not ruined it for you.
No.
But Hot Shots, apart from starring our good man Charlie, really knocking it out of the park, and really establishing himself in comedy for, I think, the first time. This was kind of his first foray into this kind of comedy.
Was this before or after Loaded Weapon?
This was before,
wasn't it?
Yes, This was before. And Loaded Weapon was before Hot Shots Part 2.
Yeah.
The one thing that really interested me from learning about Hot Shots again this week is that this movie was chosen as the royal film performance attended by the Queen.
Yes, I remember hearing that. I think it was on film. What year did this come out?
91.
91. Jesus Christ, I feel old. 91, yeah. I think I remember seeing it on film. It would be film 91 with Barry Norman. And I remember distinctly there being a whole segment about the Queen going to see this.
Taking Madge to see Hot Shots.
Yes.
Cheers. I wonder what point would it be like, what am I doing watching this movie? Is it the scene where Charlie Sheen is basically getting ready to put a hot dog into Valeria Golino in front of a fridge? There must be a moment where Jim Abrams or whoever was on Charlie and whoever was sat there thinking, oh shit, the Queen's about to see this.
No, the Queen's probably watching it going, yeah, it takes me back.
Yes. But yeah, what a bizarre movie for the royal performance, because the Addams Family was out that year. I thought that would have at least been a more suitable. Again, that's kind of macabre as well. It's suitable, but there's some jokes in Hot Shots that are extremely risque to put on in front of Madge.
I'm putty in your hands, in my hand.
I wish it could have been the original first Naked Gun movie where Leslie Nielsen is suddenly straddling the Queen across a table. Oh. That would have been a genius moment for the royal premiere. I think David would have loved that to happen,
especially after the scene where he sexual assault with a concrete dildo. That would just be the icing on the cake then. Yeah.
Yeah, the strange thing about Hot Shots is Lloyd Bridges' character. Originally, they were looking at doing it with Leslie Nielsen, and I think Jim Abrams was like, we've got to stop making movies with you, which is an interesting side. It might be misquoted, but basically they turned down Leslie Nielsen for Hot Shots to play the Lloyd Bridges role. And the same year, he ended up doing The Naked Gun 2.5 anyway.
Yeah.
Now, Lloyd Bridges is great in it. He has some absolutely diamond lines in it.
Oh, yeah. It's just like when he did Airplane. He just properly steers into the skid on the mall, doesn't he?
Yeah. You find it extremely weird that there's 3 cast members from 2.5 Men in this movie.
Men.
Yes. Obviously, you've got Charlie Sheen. John Cryer is in the movie.
Yeah.
And then playing Charlie Sheen's dad is Ryan Stiles.
Yeah.
Who's also in there as well.
He was in the second one as well.
Yes, the demolitions expert.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to blowing something up for you, sir.
Yeah, he's great, Ryan Stiles. What an amazing guy.
He's so funny.
So yes, that is our anniversaries for this week.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm actually quite surprised that I've seen 3 out of those 4 movies.
I know. Puss in Boots being the one you haven't, which you will have to rectify this holiday period.
Yes, indeed I will.
Well, I think we've waited long enough to get our guest in. I know you've been suffering, so we'll kind of jump in our little time machine back to when I was feeling like shit and you were feeling absolutely fine. From what I hear, it's come out okay, so I guess we'll have to find out. So let's go bring our guest in. Well, today I invited an American actor with a lot of history ever since making his screen debut in 1989. And apparently a lot of rabid female fans, as I found out on Facebook since we announced he was coming on. Now, over his career, he has appeared in Return to the Blue Lagoon, Stephen King adaptations, Earth Angel with our previous guest Tommy Hinckley, he says hi by the way, a Smokey and the Bandit series even I never knew about, which I found out this morning, and most famously, the role of Leo Wyatt in the series Charmed. Cue screaming girls everywhere. Now, usually, we travel all over the world to talk with our guests, but our guest this week decided to come to us. Well, he came to London. He's shortly headed to Telford as part of the Wales Comic Con, which sounds like Salford, but it'd still probably have his wallet there. So, still rocking up movie and TV roles and loving his appearances at cons the world over, it's a pleasure to introduce Brian Krause to Poddywood this week. Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
He brings his own fanfare. That's even better.
Does we need to have a button of a horde of screaming female fans, and I just keep pressing, and he just comes in and out every 5 minutes.
Yes, I bet you'd have the police on your door in 5 seconds.
Probably would, yeah.
Well, Brian, seeing as you're adjusting to our shitty climate right now, and your body's either in complete shock or homesick, how is the con looking for this weekend? And do you know who they've put you next to at it yet?
Con's looking great. I'm excited to get to Wales and get the party on. I know I'll be next to Holly Marie Combs, who played my wife on the show Charmed.
Cool.
Awesome.
Beyond that, maybe Charisma Carpenter, I'm hoping. I don't know. And Sean Astin's going to be there, so it's always great to see him, and he's such a wonderful human.
Yeah.
Good old Samwise.
Yeah.
Can you tell that I like Lord of the Rings?
That's it. Yeah, you're just made for the day now. A Lord of the Rings reference has crept into our show.
Oh, I am. It's brilliant.
I love it.
Well, we know you're looking forward to seeing your legions of fans, your acolytes. But is there someone else there that you're also looking forward to meeting yourself?
I mean, it's going to be exciting to meet Sean again. I'm going through the guest list now. It's like James Marster, he's great. Let's see who else. There's Angus McInnes, who's Star Wars and Vikings. Seems like a cool guy. Veronica Taylor, she's the voice of Ash in Pokemon. I gotta get her. I gotta get her to do the voice and leave a voicemail on my answering machine. My kid will love it.
Have you ever had any instances at a Comic-Con where a major star or someone you've really liked has come up to you and just really oh my god, you were thinking Charmed? Have you ever had that?
Not so much I've been a big fan. I mean, there have been a few wrestlers, really large human beings that have been like, man, I grew up, me and my mom watched your show, and it's been kind of surprising. But I've had quite a few that are just so humble and down to earth and nice, and we wind up hanging out. Ricky Whittle's one of them. It's so many great people. That it's amazing when you get actors outside of Hollywood, and we're all kind of just humbled out and about, and you have fans coming up and talking to you and telling you how great you are. It's fantastic, but it's also kind of emotional because you're hearing from people why they need entertainment, why they watch wrestlers, why they sat down and maybe they went through something horrible with their family or whatever, and this form of escapism has helped them through. And I guess we all kind of have that in common, where you kind of feel like a doctor. You're helping people's lives. So it's I think the one that's most memorable is Mads Mikkelsen. We were in Saudi Arabia, and what a great actor and presence, and he was just so humble and talked to everybody, and he actually went around and introduced himself to people, and I just thought that was so...
That's classic.
It was amazing, because for somebody who's kind of off, you're not going to just go in and approach the guy. And for him to be the one to come forward and introduce himself, I thought was just fantastic.
Yeah, that's a very warm feeling,
Yeah.
just hearing people like that. And speaking about warmer, let's talk about something warmer. You're a Southern California boy, originally from El Toro.
Yes, sir.
So tell us about your family, a bit of history of yourself growing up.
Well, I'm adopted. So was my brother. I was born 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds. I was in the hospital for 9 months and brought home, to my adoptive parents then, and grew up in a nice Orange County suburban home. And my first love was football, soccer, through high school, and I wanted to play professionally. And then in the 80s, there was no national soccer team, or MLS as you would say. So the only goal for a soccer player in the 80s from the States was to try to play in Europe. And after a year of university, I realized I'm not a world-class player, and I should try this acting thing. Basic American upbringing, small town America. I mean, I grew up pretty close to the ocean, and so we were always surfing and doing things like that. But my grandparents lived out in Fresno, which is kind of farm country, and every summer we would go vacation with them and kind of go live, off the grid and camp and fish and kind of live this country life. So it was a nice balance coming back and forth. And fortunately for me, when I pursued acting, I was 45 minutes away from Hollywood. So it was easy to get into classes and make the jump. And when I first started acting, it was easy to kind of go home and stay humble with my friends from high school and what have you.
Well, okay then. What was it that originally turned you on to acting then?
So in 8th grade, I guess I was 14 or something like that. It's a funny story. I was getting bullied. I was tiny. I was 105 pounds maybe, and 5'7". Like, I was a skinny little guy, and my nickname was Mouse by my brother's friends, which is great. That's a great one to help you grow up with and become an actor. Anyway, we were all rushing in after PE, physical ed, and out there running, and all the big guys would push to the door to get back into the locker room, and the largest of them would be at the front, and everybody would push from the back, and I wouldn't. I would, stay away from the fray. And the big guy got pushed. He twists his ankle. He gets all pissed. He turns around, and he's like, "Who pushed me?" And the crowd just dispersed. And there I was in the back picking my nose, right? And he's like, "Krause! 3 o'clock, get the circle. I'm going to kick your ass." I'm like, what? Like, here's this guy, 6 foot tall, 200 pounds already, wanting to kick my ass. And I'm like, what happened? Like, what did I do? And all my friends are like, "Dude, you better run." I'm like, run? Like, what did I do? And so, yeah, it was horrible. And so I left that class. I left early. His best friend was in one of my other classes, and I realized, like, my life was in danger. And so I needed to get out of that class, so I started pretending to be sick so I could get out of school early so he wouldn't follow me out into the yard. I had about a mile to go on my bike where I pushed my tenor saxophone. So I wasn't moving very quickly to get away from this guy. And I certainly wasn't going into the circle for a fist fight with this guy. So I had to change classes and find a way that I could get into the woods to get home to avoid getting beat up. And, I had pretended to be sick enough. And so I had like 4 music classes, jazz band, marching band, tutored. So they wouldn't let me take any more music classes. And I was like, well, maybe I'll take another Spanish class. Like, what can I do to get out away from this guy? And so I went to my counselor, and I was like, well, anything on the perimeter, like looking at the map of the school. And I'm like, what's this one? It's got its own door. Like, you could exit from the class in the back. And she's like, well, that's drama. And I'm like, drama? Like, okay. Like,
It sounds like something from a sitcom.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll take it. It has its own exit door, so I could park my bike there in the morning, and then jump on my bike soon as the bell rang and be in the woods, and he'll never find me. So I did it, and I wound up. People were like, "You're good." I'm like, "Okay," and so I made it away from him. His best friend was on my baseball team that summer, and now I can't even play baseball anymore, and so that kind of led me into more soccer. I wound up playing on a traveling team, and basically I had to get out of El Toro.
Oh, good Lord.
So that led me into acting in high school, and fortunately this guy Jeff Kemp went to a different high school, and but I had kind of caught the bug for acting, and people said I was doing well at it, and so my mother wound up finding an acting class that was like, hey, you want to try this? It's after school thing. And I said, I play sports. I'm not a drama guy. Okay, I'll try it. And, that led to getting auditions and then eventually booking a role and realizing I'm not a world-class athlete. I might as well go for it.
Well, at least you never got beat up in the end. That's the main thing.
I didn't get beat up by Jeff Kemp. And I'll tell you a funny, quick story about that. So when I booked the return to the Blue Lagoon, I had been working out for months to get ready. And the night before I was set to fly out, I walked into this gas station. And it's one of those where you can walk in from two sides. And I opened the door, and coming in across the way from the other door is Jeff Kemp. And now I'm 180 pounds and just feeling like an animal. And it's, cue the Clint Eastwood music, right? And it's a stare down, and I'm like, dude, you want to go? Like, I'm like ready to fight this guy. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I was like, gosh, do I say anything? And I didn't. I got my water, and I just kind of stood behind him like, what's up? And I had this moment where I wanted to say, thank you. Thank you for being a bully. Thank you for pushing me. Do you realize what I'm doing tomorrow? This dream of mine, and because of you, you've set me on this path. And I mean, it would have been a smug thank you, right? But I kind of wanted to. It's interesting how life pushes us into different spots, and I think bullying's a horrible thing, but in this case, it kind of pushed me to find what I love, and so I'm grateful for that for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of what you love, word is you're a bit of a handyman prior to being an actor. So if you're free this weekend, I've got some decking that needs doing.
Absolutely, no, not a problem. As I think we've all, as actors, you have to do a million different jobs just to keep the dream alive. And I had friends that do a lot of construction, so for years it seemed to be a way to stay busy, and you can leave the job site and come back if you have an audition, and as long as you don't cut any digits off, you're good to go.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, you weren't exactly born into the industry like a lot of people are born into the industry. You probably had to take up a lot of part-time jobs to make it as an actor. So what are some of the most interesting jobs that were supporting you whilst you were getting yourself in roles?
Well, I tell you, I think the one that helped me the most was the first one, and I held the longest, and I was a bellman at a Marriott down in Newport Beach. And it was one of those where, as a bellman, you're checking people out or checking them in. And I think the most interesting part is when you check people out, you come up with your bell cart and you're like, hi, it's Brian for the bell desk, and you walk into this room and it's an angry wife, an angry husband, screaming kids, and you need to put a smile on their face if you want to get $5 from them. So, it really taught me how to walk into a room and read the room. And come in with good positive energy, regardless of how their trip went. And I think that really helped me the most as far as auditioning, of just walking in a room and bringing the energy and not allowing the room to bring me down. And there's some crazy stories from there, and I think that was the one that helped me the most. But beyond that, I was a bartender, and then so much construction, crawling under homes, and we were retrofitting homes actually when I booked Charm, which was interesting.
It was a passion at the same time, so you still love parts of the construction and drywall and stuff like that. But You also sold some pies, didn't you?
I did. So when, I had been working for years and done a few movies, and then did a soap and got let go after 6 months and moved back to Los Angeles. And, I had a 1-year-old child and trying to pay the rent. And I had like 3 different jobs at the time. And one of them was actually driving a pie truck. You go in at 10 o'clock at night, you load up your truck, and you come back at like 3-4 in the morning and start making your deliveries. And then, I'd go from there at 7 a.m. I'd go to the work site, and you're sleeping 3-4 hours a night and just doing whatever you have to do to make it happen and support a child and the family and keep the dream alive. And it was one of those times in my life where I'm like, what am I doing? You're chasing this dream, this crazy dream. You're struggling. Money's not easy. And, I'll never forget, I said to my ex-wife, I don't know how much longer I could do this. I think, maybe I should go back to university and get a degree or sell real estate or something. And she was all pissed and nothing new there. And she's like, Brian, whatever you're going to do, just fucking do it. And,
that's the kind of ex-wife you need.
But, the actor in me, I'm like, you're supposed to tell me I'm wonderful and it's going to work out. What do you mean, just do it? And that turned into this whole thing. But, as it went on, I was like, man, she really just told me to kind of man up and put the work down and have some energy towards it. And, I don't want to thank her necessarily, but I mean, it's great advice for anybody going after a dream is that, you just have to go forward with all the passion, and you're going to work crazy hours, you're going to do crazy things, but at the end of the day it's all worth it, because there's no other way it works out. I mean, ask your favorite athlete or doctor or anybody, you got to go to the greatest lengths to have the greatest rewards, and some people do just fall into it, and I'm not bitter about their success. I think everybody has their own path, right? And I'm grateful for everything I had to do to get where I'm at, and I'm lucky. I'm beyond blessed to continue to work today. It's a fickle industry, and it's just a blessing every time I step on a set.
Well, speaking of luck and chasing your passion, in 1989 you land a few roles. Start your on-screen journey, including TV 101, yes. The TV movie Match Point, the series Highway to Heaven, which, to be honest, I still cannot believe was still going at this point, and the series... I mean, how long was it going for God's sake? And the series and Gillian. What do you remember about this break-in year that really stood out to you?
Well, man, it's amazing. I remember each one of those so specifically. In '88, I got my SAG card through a commercial, and then I said, maybe I'll take another year off of college and university and go for it. I got my card within 6 months. Then I booked the TV 101, which is just a couple lines, and met some friends. And the greatest thing about Highway to Heaven, I had like 2 lines or 3 lines, and I'll never forget this little actor. Someone else on the show was like, oh, you sit in this chair. And I had never really been on a set, a couple times, right? And he was like, no, sit in this chair right here. And it says Michael Landon and Victor French. I'm like, I don't think we're supposed to sit in there, right? Like, those are their chairs, I think. He's like, no, don't worry about it. They're on the set, and you're allowed to sit there. And I'm like, okay. And I sit in the chair. I'm in Michael Landon's chair, and he's like, oh, dude, you should get up. Here comes Michael Landon. I'm like, this guy's setting me up, right? And sure enough, I'm panicking. And all of a sudden, Landon comes over, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he's like, no. Sit down. You're okay there. It's all good. What's your name? Hey, Brian, welcome to the set. I know we got a scene in a couple minutes. Sit here, prepare, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Great to have you here. And I look over at this guy who was hoping it went the other direction. And his mouth is open, and he can't believe it. And I can't believe it. And, I'll just never forget how gracious Michael Landon was, as a superstar at that time. It was an amazing experience, and I've been fortunate to meet so many people, and like I said with Mads earlier, it's Some of the most successful people I've met are just so humble. And it's something that I've tried to keep in my life as well, because I think success grants the humble with their wishes as opposed to, those who come at it with expectation. And
That's a great quote.
Yeah. It was proven through Landon, for sure. And then, match point. I grew up playing a lot of tennis, and I actually had a tennis audition for that one, and they wanted to see my backhand, which I was very proud of. But my good friend still calls me, my character name was Bad Bart. I just had a horrible attitude and a lot of ego, and I was Bad Bart. So I worked with Nels Van Patten on that one, and Kristen DeTillo, and it was kind of this... Disney had relaunched the Mickey Mouse Club, and it wasn't part of the Mickey Mouse Club like that Justin Timberlake was on and Britney and all these people when it relaunched. We did like a series of movies that would show, I guess they showed 15 or 30 minutes every Tuesday and Thursday, and so they ran like 7-minute episodes for the run, and then that got me a guest recurring role on the Ann Gillian show, where I met my future manager, and kind of things just kind of took off from there. So it was a big year, and all in between working as a bellman, doing my thing, and as a DJ. We used to DJ weddings and parties and bar mitzvahs, and that was a whole nother aspect of staying out there and being able to talk to people, and kind of not being afraid of being looked at, I suppose.
Also, in speaking of your manager there, I just want to say a big thank you to Elle Petruk.
Yes.
Who helped us put this together. I said I'd give her a shout out.
Elle's fantastic.
Hello.
Hello. We hope we do you proud. So in 1991, you appear as the male lead in Return to the Blue Lagoon alongside Mila Jovovich. So how were you approached on the role? Was it excitement that fueled you? I mean, the first movie was a somewhat hit after all.
Right. And I had heard they were auditioning for this, and, they had seen thousands of people. And so, I had different friends that had already been in on it and auditioned for it. So when I went in, it was like, okay, you're just another face. And I went in and did it, and got a call back, and that led to more callbacks. And apparently Holly Marie Combs was at one of the final callbacks as well, which is, we talk about today, but I don't quite remember. And when I booked it, it was just like, it was one of those, for me growing up, the Blue Lagoon was kind of the forbidden movie. It was rated R. Yeah. My mother, you're not supposed to watch it. Is it porn? And, now I'm like, I want to do it. So, explaining that to my mother wasn't easy. But, when I booked it, it was great. I mean, it was a dream come true. I'm in a big studio movie. And, one of the things Billy Graham, the director, had said, he goes, Brian was one of the only actors to come in who wasn't an actor. He came in as this character. He's like, everybody comes in their leather jackets and James Dean look. Had a resurrection in the early 90s. I think we all had a headshot that looked like that. But, I just came in as a person, and the role really required kind of no knowledge of today's world, and very kind of simple. And, my intelligence level helped with that. But, he's just so vacant. He's perfect. Yeah. The real quote. But it was a dream come true. I had never really left home before. Always with parents or this, that, but never on my own. I was 21, and, here I was going off to Fiji, and, something you can only look up on books. There was no kids. There was no internet yet. I had to buy a book and see what Fiji was about. So it was quite the adventure at 21 to go off on my own for 3 months and go film this movie that, for me, I was still just such a rookie. It was... I'll never forget the experience. And if you ever get a chance to go to Fiji, the Fijian people are some of the best in the world. They're just so kind and honest and open, and just amazing. Just amazing.
Well, the movie had a bit of a troubled production due to weather issues, and it was on an island that was only accessible by a weekly ferry, with a tiny grass landing strip for small planes. Now, what do you remember about actually making the movie? Was it hell?
For Mila and I, we were there for a month without filming, just kind of adapting to the environment. I had a gentleman, Timothea, who was kind of teaching me how to be an island boy. Every day we'd go out in the water, we'd climb coconut trees. He'd teach me how to, make fire, do these things, and kind of live like a native to the island. So as far as like production, there was some production problems in that first month, but we weren't even really working. But in the summertime, you do get quite a bit of, the weather changes every 10 minutes from sun to rain to what have you. But once we started going, it went well. We did have quite a few storms and different things like that. But it seems as though once we started, it kind of, the gates opened up and we were able to finish fairly easily. But yeah, that first month was terrible for them. Sets destroyed. Some incredible storms. Our director had actually, if you go back, I know you probably won't watch the movie, but there's a scene at the very beginning where they escape, and it's the woman kind of taking this small little skiff, sailboat, through the reef, through the swell, and landing on the island. It's an incredible stunt, and none of the stuntmen could do it. They weren't great enough boatsmen, and our director, who is always, he's lifelong on the water, decides to get into this boat that's 10 feet long, single sail, wood boat, and come through the reef with 10 to 20 foot waves. Like, you couldn't get away with this today. You do it in CGI. Incredibly, incredibly dangerous. Well, he puts the dress on and a wig and brought this boat through this. It's incredible. And water over. He just gets splashed around and waves crashing on him, and he wound up making it, obviously, but he had lost his Rolex in the water, in the reef, in the middle of this storm, and it was gone. And this all happened on week one. We're out there, I think it's our last day, or second to last day, and the water in the reef goes down, and now you can walk out on the reef like a mile. And we're walking out there. It's where I swim across the channel against a shark. And he's looking out on the horizon, and he's just looking for his shot. And without even looking, he points. He's like, give me some sticks right here. And he points at the ground, and the key grip goes, and he's locking off the legs to the tripod. And he pulls up his watch with barnacles on it and the whole bit. And there it is. Here you go. And it's still running. They sent the picture off to Rolex. I don't know what ever happened to that, but it's quite an amazing story that 3 months later he set the sticks right on top of his watch.
Wow.
It's pretty miraculous.
Wow.
But I remember so much of that, and working with Mila, and I think the greatest experience was meeting the people from the villages there. It was life transforming for me, coming from Hollywood with money and all that Hollywood is, and we're on this island with these villagers who literally live off the land and live in a village, and they fish and they farm, and they have really no possessions except each other. And I think that was kind of the greatest thing, is to see the happiest people on the planet had really no possessions. They had this village and their family and their friends, and I came back from it kind of a little dissuaded, just kind of bummed out with Hollywood and this whole idea of money and life and what's it about, and that it's about living and people and friendship. And I think there was a moment there that I kind of wanted to run off and live in a village off the land, but then I didn't. I like air conditioning and TV. So, but it was a nice idea for hippie Brian back in the day.
Oh, just a quick aside, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Your mum says our show is amazing. She's just commented on Facebook.
Oh my gosh, has she?
Thanks, Mum.
Hi, Mum.
Hi, Mom.
Oh, she's gonna love that shout out.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, famously, I mean, Mila Jovovich apparently hates the movie. She says it's the worst thing she had ever done, which is debatable to anyone who saw Resident Evil Apocalypse. So, how do you feel about it?
You know, the movie is not good. I don't think a lot of people see it. Actually, Frank Price, who was the head of Columbia Pictures at the time, he staked his career on it. And just before the movie came out, he was gone. So if that tells you anything, I think 7 people actually saw it in the theater. It wasn't well received, and it was actually the script. It was a bit disjointed. You know, spend the first hour and a half kind of explaining to the audience why we're here with these 2 new kids. By the time you finally get to Mila and I, it's, you know, there we are. But I have to say, Mila, I've been in worse since. So, you know, I mean, it is what it is. It's the Blue Lagoon. Nobody's winning any awards for it. It was a great experience, I think, for both of us. Just first time in a huge movie. But we're coming at it from 2 different perspectives, I suppose. And
you got a great poster out of it.
Got a great poster, and, you know, made some lifelong friends that live in Fiji still. And, you know, I'd say that's about it. And I learned some skills, you know. If we're ever stuck on an island, you know, I'm your guy.
Well, I guess for myself, you really made a noticeable name in Mick Garris's Stephen King adaptation of Sleepwalkers. That's where you play the sun creature known as Charles Brady. So was this an audition role, or was this something that was already in circulation whilst Blue Lagoon was in production?
It was an audition. So when I got the Blue Lagoon, there was a 3-picture deal for, you know, through Sony and, through Columbia, which then became Sony as we made Sleepwalkers. But it was an audition. And it's funny, the night before my final audition callback, you know, in the room with everybody, and there were these cats outside my window that were screaming. I guess they're in heat, and they're all like, meow. And I'm like on the 3rd floor, but they were outside my window, and it was just very strange. It was eerie. And anyway, so I went in and did the audition the final time there, and Mick and everybody. And part of me, I guess I was on a list of people that were approved by the studio based off of, you know, whatever, I don't know. But, you know, I'm so grateful Mick had chose me. And again, another set, I show up, I'm 22 years old, and, you know, there's Luke Skywalker, there's Ron Perlman, there's, you know, I mean, Machen and, you know, Alice, and, you know, people who are just so talented and been working for years, and then me. So, hey guys, you know, it's so fortunate that that Mick took a chance on me, and thank God.
Well, you mentioned meeting some big names there, and Mick Garris is amongst a group of great horror directors such as Joe Dante, Clive Barker, and John Landis, but all of whom also appear in the movie with Stephen King himself in various cameos. Now, were there any of these director icons in the movie that you were just psyched to meet?
It's a horrible story. So the scene that they're in is this graveyard scene, which it spent like almost 2 weeks filming it. And in between there, that's when they had them come in to film. And I don't have a direct scene with any of them, but the studio had flown me to New York to do some press, I guess, for the Return of the Blue Lagoon and what have you. So they blocked out 3 or 4 days where they flew me away. They flew all of them in. They filmed. I come back on Sunday. I show up on Monday, and it's like, is Stephen King still here? Is that still here? They're like, no. They did it. They're gone. I'm like, oh. But everybody else got to meet him? Yeah. I'm like, oh.
You did get to work with Otho from Beetlejuice, though.
Yes. Glenn Shattuck's amazing man. You know, and you say, I just was with Mick he just had a signing for a recent book that came out. I guess a biography, and I see him once or twice a year, and I gotta say, one of the nicest humans you'll ever meet. Gracious, humble, wonderful. And then Glenn, same thing. And I wasn't even acting much before that came out. I mean, like he was great and funny, and how lucky was I to be able to work with some iconic people for sure.
Yeah. Also, Mick has a really great podcast that he hosts called Postmortem.
That's right.
Where he focuses a lot on horror movies and has a lot of horror directors and stars, and it is a fantastic podcast.
He's amazing. Again, somebody who had a goal and a dream, and started. Nobody handed it to him. He did his work, and he has a passion, and obviously supremely artistic from being a writer, director, and he's a fan of the genre, and I think that helps. And he just never stopped believing, and great things have happened. It's amazing. So I've just met so many people who are like, well, I direct. I'm like, well, what do you love? They're like, well, whatever comes along. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, but a guy like Mick is like, no, this is what I love. This is what I do. And he's at the top of the game. I think if you ever wanted to make a horror thriller, to get his advice or have him produce it, direct it, I think is, you guarantee a winner.
Definitely. And in this movie, you have two love interests. You have the beautiful Machina Mick, absolutely beautiful and incredibly talented actress. And then also with your mum, the also beautiful Alice Krieg. Great work if you can get it, Brian. So how is it working with these two strong female leads?
Again, 22. Me? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm sure they were eye rolling, like, who is this guy? Like, really, Mick? Really? Alice was amazing. We had quite a few meetings before we started, and wanted to create a chemistry, and we talked about the role and who we are, what we were. We're these alien cat people pretending to be humans, and so she really kind of took me aside and helped so much in finding the role and what we were going to do with it. And Machen, what can I say? She's just yes, incredibly beautiful, but incredibly talented, and again, humble and wonderful. It's amazing. One of my first jobs, and I don't know that you mentioned, but it may not be on my IMDb because I was cut out. I had a line on the pilot of Baywatch, in which Machen was the lead guest star of the pilot of Baywatch, and I gave my line to Machen. It was like, hey, cool sweatshirt, where'd you get it? Right? And I'm supposed to walk through the sand, turn around as she walks, and, go on and hit your mark and say the line. Well, I couldn't hit my mark. And so, never in focus, never on the screen, and I was cut out. And to think, 2 years later, here I am starring in a movie with her was pretty incredible. So I had to remind her of that. And she had this look on her face like, you were the guy, really? Like, huh?
Learn to hit your mark since, yeah.
Huh, interesting.
Well, for a movie that's centered around cats, it's interesting to note that both the leading lady and the director are allergic to them.
Yes, it's so crazy. I love cats.
It's like Steven Spielberg saying, oh, I'm directing this movie called Jaws. I can't swim, but...
I can't swim. I hate sharks. The water's icky. Yeah. It was, what do I say? We had so many cats there, and cats can be creepy, It's not Cujo. It's a cat. Like, there's something to them that have this... They just always know, don't they, those kids?
Yeah.
The weird thing about Sleepwalkers, they have this kind of tonal shift in the movie, because it starts off as a real dark, brooding horror, and then suddenly you're stabbing a cop in the ear with a pencil and saying "cop kebab." So was any of this kind of pickup, or was it reshoots due to test audiences, or was it always destined to have this kind of comedic tone in it?
When I first had a discussion with Mick before we started. His idea was Werewolf in London, which that was kind of what we were going for. It was horror comedy, I suppose. It's got to be light. This is where he kind of wanted me to go with the character, and obviously, once I start getting bloody and have this thing that it was a little big. I think the way I did it. Again, 22. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, you went all in.
Yeah. They're like, okay, just a little, maybe a little. Okay, is that all we're gonna get? All right, take it. But that was kind of the idea. Is a little bit of that was the reference. Werewolf in London.
I can actually see that. I mean, later on, you've got, a guy getting stabbed in the back with an ear of corn.
Right.
You got Ron Perlman getting his fingers bitten off.
Exactly.
It's definitely got this real dark comedic tone to it, and I think that's why people really kind of count it as this cult classic nowadays.
It's funny, so many people are like, "Oh my gosh, that movie scares me so much." I'm like, "You haven't watched it. It's not scary. Where is it scary? I guess parts of it and how it's shot have this scary element, but it's horror light.
Yeah,
it's creepy more than terrifying.
It's creepy, and me and Alice, I think my mother, and this is one my mother never saw. I couldn't show her that one.
Yeah, she'd have a lot to answer for.
Hey, Mom, I made it! Watch this!
Yeah, you made it with your mom in this movie.
Brian, you've been naked in your first two movies. What is happening? I don't know. Isn't it great?
There's a psychiatrist somewhere who's rubbing his hands thinking of all the money he's going to make from this.
Yeah.
Nudity and edible complexes. One last question before we move on. Were you under the final creature makeup at the end, or was that another actor?
I was never in the full body. So head to toe, that was a performance actor. The suit's quite large, and to put me in it, I'd have been 10 feet tall. The most makeup I was in went from kind of my belt line up and over my shoulders and head. That's kind of the most, but anything that shows more of a full suit, that was not me. But laying down on the couch at the end with the stomach and all that stuff, that was, yeah.
Okay, so now I have to ask, shortly after that, you show up in a Smokey and the Bandit prequel series of TV movies, directed by Hal Needham himself.
That's right.
And it was called Bandit, imaginatively, which is the name of my cat, who is currently purring around my feet at this moment. Not to actually scare that we're talking about Sleepwalkers and the dangers of cats, and he walked in just as we were saying it. So,
weird timing.
I mean, you even got to share the series with the actor Christopher Atkins, who basically played your role in the original Blue Lagoon, which I'm sure was just coincidence. So we must know what was going on here with this series.
So during the 90s, TV and Hollywood, they were making a series of, I guess, miniseries. So Columbo had done some. There were a couple different networks that were doing these 3-4 2-hour movie miniseries. And Bandit had gotten picked up to be one of them. Hal Needham, his whole history. So obviously it wasn't as highbrow as Columbo. It's Bandit. So, it's interesting. I mean, for me to even get to that point, highs and lows of a career, money in out, not working. It was kind of a reset, and this came along. And, I'd always been a fan of the Bandit movies and Stuntman and, all of that. And, it was one of those okay, here we go. All right, I'm doing it. And, that took me down to North Carolina. I was there for almost 8 months as we made the 4 different movies. And, I worked with Stan Barrett, who was our stunt coordinator, and his two sons, Stanton and David. And David's gone on to executive produce Blue Bloods, and both of his kids are like incredible stuntmen and athletes. So they took us in and taught us how to drive cars and do stunts and drive the rig and get sideways and do 360s. And Hal was one of those guys that he wanted the actor to do the stunt. He's the only guy I've worked with where you're in at 8, you're out at 5. Like, that's how it goes. There's no 16-hour days. You're in at 8, you're out at 5, and the actor needs to do it, and it makes a day quicker, and you get one take, and let's go. So it was an incredible experience, and it got me into racing. It's where I met my ex-wife, and so I was into racing cars for a while, and that whole thing, and until I got divorced, and now I hate it. I'm kidding. But, not really, but kind of. But what an experience. Hal Needham was, just one of a kind and a throwback to old Hollywood. Through that, I got to meet, Stan Barrett, who was Paul Newman's stuntman. Paul Newman had come down to the set and hung out with these guys. It was like their buddy, their racing buddy. And, the old stuntmen of Hollywood is kind of what I got to meet on that set. And, as lowly received as the movies were, what an experience. Old Hollywood. It was incredible. Christopher Atkins, who I had met a bunch. To have him there, it was kind of funny. Who I've gone on later and had a relationship with even to this day. He's played on my baseball team, and Chris, what a great guy. Just a wonderful human.
Who had the best perm?
I think Chris did. Chris has got some good hair.
Oh, yeah.
Different era, too. He came through the 80s. Like, it was all about that big hair.
Yeah. Well, you appeared in a long-running TV serial, Another World, as Matthew Corey. Now, how did you feel about heading back to TV after being in feature films for so many years previously?
It's tough. Coming up through the 80s, you did one or the other. You couldn't do a commercial. Once you booked a TV gig, you stopped doing commercials. Once you booked a feature film, you stopped doing TV. So once I was doing films, it was like the idea of doing any television after that meant my career was over, right? And that's obviously all changed today. But it was kind of nervous time. And I'll tell you, I wasn't working a lot. They weren't knocking down my door. I had personal issues from drinking and whatever, and I was kind of trying to fuck up my entire career. I kind of got to this point where I had said to my agent, I said, look, we're starting over. I said, if that means I have to start from the bottom rung of doing a commercial to a one line to a guest star to a thing, I said, this is we built this plan of how to kind of get back to where we wanted to. And I said, man, I'll do a soap. He's like, you will? I'm like, let's go. It's all about working and proving that I can do it. And so I kind of put myself out there, and this was the first one that came along, and you wind up signing this 5-year deal. And I kind of thought for me that getting this would be the rest of my career. I was going to spend 20 years doing a soap. You're getting this film actor to come in and do a soap, and I felt like I was helping them as much as they were helping me. And I figured I'd be there for 20 years. I wound up being there for 6 months, getting let go, and had to question my whole life all over again. So, again, at the time, my son was not even a year. So it was a way to get out of the restaurant, get out of the pie truck. And we moved to New York, and, I did 6 months. And I quickly realized why soaps are what they are. Memorizing 40 pages a night. You get one take. And go. And you got to be word for word. It's very, very, very hard work. So anybody that's made a career of it, and your lead soap star, they're doing 75 to 100 pages a day, word for word, memorized. Wow. And it's quite incredible when it comes off really good, because it's an impressive talent to be able to make it believable and good and entertaining. So I learned from there, like, wow, these guys are. This is hard.
Yeah, just listening to that, the idea of going through about 70 pages a night, is making my head ache just from the thought of it.
It's incredible.
There's you. We're really hoping that Coronation Street gig went full time. I bet you're glad it didn't. No.
Well, I averaged, my character Matt was about 30 to 40 pages, and the most I ever did was like 60 something. And even 30 pages, 40 pages, I would stay up till midnight, 1 a.m, just running it, writing it down, saying it, and then get up, catch the bus, go through New York. I was sleeping 4 or 5 hours just to get one take and not be. It took me a lot of work to do it, and then you had this guy like Tom Eplin, who was a regular on the show, and he'd go do 80 pages, and he'd just memorize it in the morning. Just walk on a set and do it. I'm like, unbelievable. Yeah. And they're like, well, it's a muscle. I'm like, okay. I don't know.
You kind of started to fall into the world of sci-fi with a movie I've never been able to find and I've looked for the better part of 20 years. It was a movie called Within the Rock.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if it's any good, but the trailers looked really good when I first saw it. But I've never been able to find it.
I haven't either. Some great people in that. Robert Patrick.
Xander Berkeley as well.
Xander Berkeley. I mean, it's like, I don't know if it ever came out. It was released. I don't know what happened to it. I don't think any of us have an idea what happened to it.
It's one of those lost gems that's just going to show up on a distant channel one night.
Yeah, it was kind of an independently produced Aliens, if you will. It was kind of that was the movie. Good script. Good, I don't know whatever happened to that. It's a shame.
Well, with a bit of luck, it'll show up like Tammy and the T-Rex did. After about 20 years in just a vault somewhere, it's suddenly going to get sprung onto the world with a bit of luck.
Someone's got it on Betamax. I know it. So.
Super 8, come on.
It's Super 8. I'm not that old.
Well, suddenly the world of Brian Krause explodes with your arrival as Leo Wyatt on the hit show Charmed. Cue the millions of girls screaming. Now, the role of Leo is not who you went in to audition for, was it?
No. I went in for Andy Trudeau, the detective police officer, initially. So when I came back after Another World, moved it back across the country, and again, starting over, right? Construction, doing all that stuff. And, I had been auditioning quite a bit. I had auditioned for Aaron Spelling on 90210, Melrose Place, everything that he ever did, and never really booked anything. And, including Andy Trudeau. And I had heard of the show happening, and I had known the girls, Alyssa and Holly and Shannon, kinda in the circles and friends of friends. So I knew they were doing this show, but so I had auditioned once or twice and for Andy and didn't get it. And it was kind of building towards this frustration for me of, this is right about the time my wife said, whatever you're gonna do, just do it. Right? And so here I come crawling out onto this house, and I got this audition for Leo, the handyman, and just struggling to just keep the dream alive. And I walk in to this audition, and they're like, okay, come back at 4:00 and for the producers. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I gotta call the guy at my construction site and tell him I'm not coming back, which means I gotta tell my wife I'm not making $100 today, and I gotta walk into that house and explain it to her that I didn't make money today. Like, this better pan out. And so then I stay there, and then I wind up, all right, come back later. Aaron's coming in at 6. So it's all happening in one day. And when you walked in for Aaron Spelling, his office is 5,000 square feet. Like, it's gigantic. And he had this couch that would hold 20, 30 people. And he sat in the middle, and you sat across the office and stared at these 30 people on the couch. It's a terrifying audition room. And so here I go, and I'm like, okay, we're going in, like, all right, I'm going to go see Aaron again, the guy that doesn't hire me. But I thought in my head, I'm like, this is a great way to remind him that he's seen me before, right? Like, I'm going to walk in, I kind of knew what would happen, and my goal was to say, hello, Mrs. Spelling, it's great to see you again. Perhaps that'll ring a bell for him, right? So I walk in, well, hey, man, Mr. Brian Krause, Mr. Spelling. I'm like, hello, Mr. Spelling. It's wonderful to see you again. And he looks at my picture, and he looks at my resume, and he looks up at me, and he goes, oh, hello, Brian. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet me. Yeah, I've lost my $100. I gotta go back to the construction site. My wife is gonna freaking kill me. What the am I doing? Hollywood sucks. I hate this. I'm just incredibly pissed off. And they're like, Brian, are you ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. And I gave this read like, this place, Hollywood, screw it all. I don't care. I'm quitting. I don't care anymore. And now Leo's such a nice guy. The whole audition was like, oh, I'm sweet, right? And I read it like I was just saying, screw you, screw this, F off. And I read it just like with spit coming out of my mouth. And they're like, okay, great. Anything else? And I look at them, I go, anything else? That's it. Okay, great. Thank you. I waved and I just walked out. No goodbye. No thank you, Mr. Spelling. I just walked out. And they called me a half hour later and said, I got it. So I don't get it. I've tried that again, and it didn't go over well, so I don't really understand how it happened. But, yeah, what a mystery this industry is.
Well, I mean, Charmed actually, it got renewed for its second season after only the first 2 episodes had aired. So were you kind of aware of this early success while you were shooting it?
I wasn't on yet, but I knew Shannon Doherty and Aaron Spelling. I mean, there's a long history there. Basically, anything Aaron does or did, was gold. It was TV gold. I mean, he didn't really shoot much pilots, TVs that didn't get picked up to series that didn't last a while. So he was kind of television's guy when it came to knowing how to put it together. So it wasn't surprising the show was going to go. And then with Shannon and obviously later Alyssa and Holly, and the idea that it was kind of groundbreaking TV, right? 3 female leads that also are into this sci-fi. It was something that had never been done before, and so it wasn't too surprising they had picked it up. It was surprising they kept bringing me back.
Were you aware that the original Charmed house is now Hank Pym's house in the Ant-Man movies?
No.
Ah, there you go.
There you go. Bit of trivia for people. I bet all the Charmed fans are like, how the f*** doesn't he know that? I wonder, did they actually film inside the house, or was it just exterior?
Only inside the doorway, like the what do you call it, like a landing room there. There's the coat room. That's about as far as we got into it.
So you should have just carved your initials in there, then you would have been in like Marvel's better movie.
Well, I tell you, when I'm feeling down about my career and things are a little slow, I'll drive to the house and just sit out front. And, there's constantly people from all over the world showing up to take a picture in front of the Charmed house. I'm like, hey, guys, it's me.
You're not Rupert Evans.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even worse, you're not Paul Rudd.
Yeah. They're like, who's this guy? Could you get out of the picture? We're taking a picture of the house. Who's that old wrinkly guy? What the? Oh, he keeps saying he's Leo.
Apparently, a lot of on-set tension between Alyssa Milano and Shannon Doherty. Did you find yourself surrounded by that?
I know nothing about it.
No, there we go.
Is the very diplomatic answer.
Was it there?
I was in the commissary, it's fine.
I was outside taking pictures.
This is something that I think everybody's trying to avoid in all interviews, even those 2 girls. But I think it's something that was public knowledge. It's who's the star of the show, and I think the girls have a history that dates back further than the show in Hollywood. dating boys in Hollywood, I suppose.
We've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was one of those. Shannon's a tough cookie, and she's freaking awesome. But she's not the easiest all the time. She's a perfectionist, and I think you have Alyssa, who's kind of a softie and nice and sweet and wants everything to be perfect. And I think personality wise, they're very opposite. It's a clash just based off of who they are. And then I think there was a fight who was the star of the show. And not to be cliche, but I will be. It was who's the boss, and we all know who won that one. It's too bad because I love Shannon and I have so much respect for her as a human and her work ethic. I mean, she works hard and she shows up and she does it and she knows what goes on a set, and she just, I think when she left the show, I think we all wondered how much longer the show had, because she was kind of the patriarch of the show. She was the show, and the show changed when she left and we brought Rose in, and I think we just got the show became lighter. It just became a little more fun and not as kick-assy as it was with Shannon. And I think we have two different shows. The first 3 years with her, and then the remaining 5 with Alyssa and Rose. I think the show became more fun, lighter, different.
Well, it's a very, very diplomatic answer.
I mean, are you trying to get me?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I have the utmost respect for all of them, honestly. It's like, in this industry, it's very hard to get work, male or female. To get work as a woman and be a star of a show, it historically has been very difficult. And, for all of these 3 women to not only be the stars, but be the headline, to headline a show, it's a very difficult place to get to. And they did it, and they didn't do it just because they got lucky. They did it because they're all great at what they do. So I learned a lot on having ambition and work ethic from every one of them. And there was, look, you spend 8 years on any set with anybody, there's going to be really tough days where you hate each other, and our set was not immune to that, for sure. But then next day you come in and it's a love fest. So it was I showed up, I did my lines, and I walked out. Like, do not get involved.
Well, it seems that you lost out on having an action figure made with the other key cast members. Is this right?
No, I have there's an action figure of Leo.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Oh.
You don't have it?
How collectible? No. It's suddenly missing from all of my toys.
Wow. Well, they have. Oh, interesting. I guess they did 2 or 3 different runs, but I'm definitely in one of the runs. There's Action Leo.
And
that was. My mom. Yes, my mother was a doll collector, and literally a huge wall in her bedroom of dolls dating back to the beginning of the 20th century and 19th century, and all the way up to. She had Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man, and, every presidential doll and the First Lady dolls and every acting character you could ever imagine. So when I got it's not a doll, it's an action character, action figure. It's not a doll. I had to keep telling my mom that. But, to give her that and have her put it in her collection was probably one of life's, finest moments for me. Like, there you go, Mom. I did it.
Well, I mean, the show's hugely successful. It's got one of the most loyal fan bases going. But by the 8th season, there was a lot of cuts that were being made. They say it's down to budget. Your role was cut back quite a lot. A lot of on-location filming was cut, and Dorian Gregory was cut out of it completely.
Right.
So how did all of this come to yourself?
It was quite a shock, actually. I had just signed a wonderful contract for the last season. Renegotiating every year I was always dead. So it was like, okay, I'll take what you give me. And I finally signed this great contract, and I'm super happy. And It was literally the week before we started. I had gone to, one of the executives brought me to like a Dodger game and put us up in the, the suite to kind of say thank you to the guys of the CW. And they wined us and dined us and said, "Oh, Brian, thank you for being there and putting up with the girls and the show. And we can't thank you enough for everything you've done for so many years. And this is awesome, blah, 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 blah." The next day, I get a call from my agent. "Hey, listen, they're not picking up your contract. They only want to give you 10 episodes of the final season."
Oh, dear.
Excuse me? They want to spread 10 episodes out over the whole season. So they want me for the whole year, but not in every episode. I was a little pissed off. But at the same time, I was like, look, I'll do 10 episodes. First half of the season, I get the second half off. And they agreed to it. And then I came back and did the final 2 episodes of the show. Listen, for me, I mean, I'll be really candid. When I got divorced in 2001, which we were in season 2 or 3, my son moved across the country. And, I let my wife go and get remarried and do the whole thing. And I hit a point of just super depression. And my son being the only blood I know in my life, and he was my boy, and to have him move across the country, I was incredibly, incredibly depressed and began to self-medicate. And I was drinking every single day, just trying to till I passed out. And I was depressed. And that behavior didn't change all the way through. And I think it started to show up on camera. I gained weight. I'd show up late. I always knew my lines and whatever, but I don't think I was bringing the same performance as I was the first couple years. I think I got wrinkly. I think, I wasn't the cute little Leo that I started as. And I think for the show, as they were moving on, it was like, look, he's not spelling beautiful anymore. Like, and they kind of made that transition with me. And honestly, I don't blame them. But it was, I spent 15 years of just self-medicating, depressing, trying to kill myself. And finally, I'm on the good side of it. Here I am, almost 4 years sober. It's fantastic. But it took me a long time, and I didn't want to be on the show. I didn't care to be there. I didn't want to be around the girls. It was very difficult for me. I was depressed every single day, and yet here I am living this dream. So it was kind of a weird place to be. So actually, when they said you're out of here, I was as pissed as I was. It was, I wanted it to be on my terms and not on their terms. So I think that's what I was pissed off about. But, it was kind of a relief as well. It took a lot of the pressure off, and I was able to kind of, go be a dad a little bit more. So it was a weird spot. As much as I had been asking for it for years to not be there, when they finally said, "Okay, don't be here," I'm like, "What? You jerks!" So I really think that's what happened. I pushed it. I was a catalyst in part of that happening. So whether it was budget cuts and you bring in Kaylee and obviously Dorian was out as well, and locations and thus, and I think they were making room for where they wanted to take the future of television, wherever they saw it going. And I think they had made a statement that I wasn't a part of that. I get it.
Were you ever offered to come back for the reboot?
I was not, and I know it's because the girls have kind of bashed it publicly, on Twitter, I guess. I don't think Leo goes back without Piper. So it's, I don't think they come and get me before they get one of the sisters. It's possible I could show up, obviously, but I feel like they've created this new show and they've separated themselves from all of us, even Alyssa and Rose and Holly and all of them. So I think they just wanted something brand new and something that stands on its own, and they've done it. But not to say that I wouldn't go back. I really love playing Leo, as far as the role constantly being the voice of do the right thing and good things happen. That's one thing I did like is he's inherently a great person with morals. even though I didn't always have them myself.
Well, on a more personal note, I want to say congratulations on the 4 years being sober.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know it's not easy. I went through my entire 20s self-destruction in the same way, in kind of the same situations as yourself as well. So congratulations, and we are so glad that you're on the other end of it.
I appreciate that. It's where the good part of life happens. It's been amazing, and to hear, other people have gone through it, and I think so many people do and don't ever really find a way, and there's happiness is a choice, and it's you got to work for it, and I'm definitely a happier person since, so it's fantastic. Thank you. I hope
we're glad. Otherwise, this show would have been a downer.
Okay, that's your 20-minute interview. Bye-bye.
Well, after 154 episodes of Charmed, which is amazing, you've always remained one of the most popular figures on the show also. And how has the fandom been to you, away from Leonie Lee, who is probably never going to forgive me for tagging you in her comment the other day, Mr. Fine Wine. In case you don't know about this, Steve, because you're not on social media.
I'm not on social media, no. That was my break for my mental health.
So I mentioned that Brian was coming onto the show, and a friend of mine, Leonie, posted, when you talk to him, tell him that he's aged like a fine wine. So I went, okay, and I tagged Brian. Brian, Leonie says you've aged like a fine wine. And she sent me a message saying, I think I just have to go and kill myself. But she's a big fan of yours, so give her a bit of a shout out, Brian.
Leonie, thanks. Thank you for saying that. These wrinkles were earned. Much appreciated. And I'm an actor, so there's so much self-doubt. You wonder if the wrinkles, sometimes you think, oh, it's over. I'm not pretty anymore. I'm a monster. So it's thank you. I'm blushing, and it's I'm fortunate to still keep going. And the Charmed fans have been amazing. I think going to these Comic-Cons has been life-changing. I show up and I've heard so many stories from people of why they watched Charmed and what it meant to them. The greater good. They were different. Their life was hard. They sat next to their mother as they went through this horrible illness, and watching this show helped them get through this hard part of their life. And Leo, you're the angel, and I love you, and oh, you meant this and this, and man, who would have ever imagined that? Nobody says that about, Richard in the Blue Lagoon.
There might be one person out there.
There might be one.
Your pecs got me through a hard time.
Yeah. Sorry, Christopher. Is it you? Yeah. But it's amazing to think our show just resonated with so many people that feel different, that feel marginalized, that feel like their life is a struggle. And kudos to the girls and to Aaron and to all the writers, and to be a part of that has helped people survive a horrible family incident or whatever it might be. I don't even know how to describe it. I feel blessed that I'm on this side of it, that people feel like I help give them something. And I grew up watching a ton of TV and movies, I think, as all of us, and I gotta say, I wasn't gonna go up to Lee Majors and say, man, you helped me, bro. Like, am I going up to Hasselhoff and going, dude, Knight Rider? Listen, I was stuck in my room for years, depressed, and Jeff Kemp was gonna kick my ass, and you helped me.
One man could make a difference.
Yeah. Oh, man, you and Kit, like, wow, you saved me. Like, I don't know that I ever had that response. And, when I have people be honest about it like that, it makes me kind of tear up a little bit. That knowing as an actor that we have kind of that power, right?
Yeah. Well, over the last decade, you've not exactly been resting on your laurels. You've continued to act in a large variety of projects, including TV series such as Dark Rising and Turn Back Time. You've also delved into one of my favourite areas, the video game voiceover.
Yes.
Voicing games such as L.A. Noire and Fallout 76, and many others have the tones of Mr. Brian Krause. So tell us about your foray. Are you yourself a gamer?
I am a gamer.
Yes.
I play a lot of Battlefield. That seems to be my thing. I haven't tried any of the Fortnite or whatever. So, yeah, I'm the single-person shooter army games. And that and Mario Kart.
Of course.
Of course.
But I do love games. It's funny. My son, who's in his 20s, and sees me at home with my Xbox. I'm like, yeah, role reversal.
Dad, go and tidy your room before you play that game.
Yeah. What? Make me a grilled cheese. Yeah.
Dad, I'm trying to study.
Go in the other room. I don't want to put the headset on. Yeah. So it's funny.
There is one thing that I did actually notice. Brian Bloom, who was in Bandit,
Yes.
was also one of the head writers and also appeared in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So I know that's not Battlefront or Battlefield. You've got to make sure you don't get those two mixed up. But it's a nice little thing knowing that you like first-person shooters, and it's like your buddy from Bandit is there front and center.
Yeah, he's gone on to do some. So I didn't see him much after we did that. Obviously, I had a kid and the whole bit, but I think he executive produce and write the A-Team as well.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so he's been out there killing it. And hello, Brian. It's Brian.
Well, now I want to cover a little specialist area of my own now. So I had to do some of these direct-to-DVD sci-fi movies that you've been doing. No matter what anyone says, these are classics, such as Loch Ness Terror, Camel Spiders, which is awesome, Warbirds, Salford Women. Oh wait, that one was banned.
What?
Yeah, we're going to get letters from the people from Salford. We really are.
If I could get sued by the entire city of Salford, I have achieved something in my life. So,
I was like, I'm not in that. What is that?
That's what anyone says when you actually ask them if they're from Salford.
I wasn't in the movie Pirates either.
Well, despite what anyone says, I mean, these are the most fun you can actually watch on late night TV or the Sci-Fi Channel. And I reckon movies like this, they've got to have some fantastic behind the scenes production stories.
Again, being 4 years sober, it's, I've made some mistakes, and you wind up doing movies like this when you need money and you need to work. And that's kind of how they came about initially. And I got to say, it's the most fun movie making ever. You don't want to make a career of them, obviously, but man, it is fun. It's like, okay, up there's a gigantic spider. I'm like how gigantic? Like gigantic. Okay. All right. Now it's make believe like nothing else. It's like, oh my God, run! Digga. You're shooting it. It's like, you feel like a kid for sure making some of these. And listen, low budget sci-fi. There's a huge audience for it, and some you try to do campy, you try to do what you can. It's obviously like Sharknado, just one of many, and it just happened to take off. But finding myself doing them, it's like, oh man, another creature. Like, I think I've dealt with the Loch Ness Monster twice. Like, a funny story in one of them. I'm supposed to be running across this field. I found old Nessie has laid eggs, and there's a whole cavern of eggs that are the size of a car. And I'm supposed to be running with one of these eggs, like I'm going to kill it. And I'm literally running across this field with this styrofoam gooey egg. Goo everywhere. There's like, this thing is gigantic, and I gotta go. And I kind of get over to this guy, Niall, and I'm like, Matter, who is in it with me, and I'm like, Niall, we got to make this, we got to have fun here, right? And we kind of do this little smirk thing and whatever, kind of making fun of ourselves and letting the audience know that we're in on it. And the director was having none of it. And he's like, Brian, he goes, I need you to be serious here. Like, this is a serious moment of the script. And I'm like, I'm running across a field with a gigantic dinosaur egg with goop all over me. How serious are we? Like, this isn't Jurassic Park, bro. Like, you see the hat? You see the gun? Like, I get it. Take it serious. You want everybody to fall in like I'm doing this, but I'm like, come on, man. We got to have a little fun, right? Like, I got a gigantic egg in my arms. I haven't worked for him since either.
I've got to say, I am such a fan of the movie Warbirds, right? Which since I saw it on late night Sci-Fi Channel, I think it was, or it might have been Bravo, and it was just on, and it just started watching it, and I was like, for some reason I can't turn this off. Oh, there's Brian Krause. Oh, God, this is going to be good. I know Brian Krause is in it. And, there's Jamie Mann. And Jamie Mann, she's very striking. Good actress as well. And it's like, okay, they're in a World War II bomber and they're facing pterodactyls. This is going to be good. And it was. I've got to admit, I found so much fun from that movie. It was one of the best nights I stayed up and watched a movie that just came on.
That's fantastic. Again, we found eggs in a cave, or well, the Japanese did.
There's a reoccurring theme here, isn't there?
Yeah.
Brian Krause is the Easter Bunny of.
Listen, if you need old dinosaurs brought out from the dead, you hire Brian Krause. Right? He's your go-to finder. Yes. Forget that Chris Pratt guy.
Yeah.
He's Krause.
Who cares what he's doing these days? Yeah.
It's funny. I'm remained really good friends with Toru Masamune, who played the colonel, the Japanese colonel of that movie, and we do kind of every once in a while we bring it up, our whole relationship and that movie. I just love at the end where I died. I'm going down, and I got to do that final scene, where I'm like, no, and I ride the bomb down. It's kind of like
your Slim Pickens moment. Yeah,
it was my Slim Pickens moment, exactly.
I'm saying it's one of those movies that people should just hunt down and watch. It should be a cult classic like Shaun.
Oh man, we all sign up to be actors and hope that we're Laurence Olivier, and we don't get to choose our roles, right? Roles pick us, and as work comes along, it comes along. And I guess you can work your way into a genre or a type, by making choices. But, I'm one of those actors like, okay, do I have time to do it? Am I available? Let's do it. There's not much I turn down. I just love working. So if you got a dinosaur egg movie, call me up. Maybe I'm free. Does it stop me from doing more dramatic stuff and, I guess, serious work? Potentially, which is kind of funny. I guess our industry's a little snobby like that, right? You can't be in an Oscar movie if you've hunted dinosaur eggs, but and I don't know that it's ability as much as our industry kind of puts everybody in a hierarchy of what they think they're capable of doing.
And to be honest, I wouldn't say that, because you look at the case of Robert Foster, right? Robert Foster was a major actor in the 70s, serious actor. He did I've forgotten the major movie that he was in. The title of it has just slipped on my head, but he basically ended up venturing into direct-to-DVD movies and stuff like that in the early part of the 90s. And then it turns out Tarantino, who's a big fan of any kind of movie.
Right.
And suddenly he was like, I'm bringing you back, I'm bringing Pam Grier back. And they were basically doing really small direct-to-video roles. Yeah, yeah. Well, Robert Foster did stuff like Alligator and movies like that, which were the early days of all of these type of movies that turned out. And
Interesting.
there's some actors that I know who have actually gone on. They started out doing these type of movies and actually have progressed upwards. You know, at the end of it, it's all work and it's what you do with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is, and it's you know, I think even beyond that, it's believing what you're capable of, right? Not taking your resume on your shoulders with you into the room, being the actor new in the day. Like, hey, I have just believing in yourself. I think that's the big part of it. I think for a certain period for me, I was like, oh, I did the Loch Ness. That's all I am. It's over. And it's very hard to keep your confidence level up when you've done some things that you feel aren't up to whatever. At least I've struggled with that. And it's obviously being sober, it's much easier to. But I'm not going down depression lane anymore. But that's amazing because Robert Forster what a phenomenal actor he was.
Oh yeah,
it just so good.
Yeah, and there's so many more like that. I mean, I was a big fan of the direct-to-video scene in the 80s and 90s, so I would just watch absolutely everything. And as soon as we got satellite TV and it had a dedicated movie channel, I was watching everything that used to be on. So I knew a lot of the actors that started out. I mean, Viggo Mortensen started out on... a friend of mine directed a movie called American Yakuza, which was basically it was a Japanese gun movie made in the US for I think probably about 2-3 million, and his career shot straight up.
Sure.
And he had Michael Nuri, who was a big star in stuff like a movie he did called The Hidden, a couple others in the 80s, and he's went down that way and he went back up as well. It's just the complete hills and valleys. We've had it from some of the guests that we've had on who, have been up there and then came down again and then came back up again.
It really is. And, I think Hollywood loves redemption. They love it if you come back. I mean, look, Robert Downey Jr., he went from prison to 70 million.
Yeah.
It's amazing. If you get your life together and believe in it, and it's never over. And, there's not a lot of things where you can say that. You don't say that to a sports athlete, 5 years out. Like, well, you can make a comeback. You're 53. It's possible. Like,
I think the other reason why it really works as well is because there are always going to be people coming into the industry, new directors especially. They've grown up watching movies throughout the 80s, 90s, and they're going to be directing their first movies, and they remember all of these actors.
True.
And to these people, they're a name. So a lot of maybe executives and, studio people, they look at it a lot differently of like, well, who's this person? This is why Tarantino was fantastic at pulling all of this talent back that had been written off by studios.
It's true. He does it. He seems to do it in all of his movies as well. It's funny. I just finished a little prison movie, and it's great. I love it. And I was the producer, the director. They're like, man, you're Leo. Like every day, I'm like, all right, I'm prison guy now. Like, I'm like, no, man, but he's a thing. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, wow. I'll sign that for your mom.
Yeah, for your mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're currently doing the TV series Cypher, where you're playing the character of Robert, which is all about FBI crypto analysis, and that's playing on Roku now. How's all of that going?
It went well. We made a independently produced, 8 episodes. So for a show like that, it's a very low budget to make an action show. And Majdi Smiri, who wrote it and directed it, he's brilliant. And for no money, he made a great show. So we'll see. I know we're all hoping to get a second season out of it with a real budget, so we can kind of blow it open. I haven't been following it. I'm not sure how well it's been received or how it's doing around the world. I was talking to somebody the other day, one of the actresses in it, Eve Morrow, and she's like, apparently they're telling me it's great in India. I'm like, oh, there you go. we found our audience.
It is on my list now to try and track it down and watch it, because I did see the trailer and it looked fantastic.
The scripts that we had were great. I don't know what's missing from it except maybe a bigger budget, more action. It's a show and a premise that has a lot of promise. And I think what they put out is we're hoping to get a second season to really give the audience something that's a little more enthralling. Right now, that's 8 episodes and try and fall in love with these characters that are there and see if we can make something out of it. But for me to play, this hard-nosed FBI agent hunting down the world powers, it was something I don't often get approached to play. So it was fun to kind of dive into that and be that guy for a minute. Good guy, bad guy, we're not sure. So that was fun. I would love to get a chance to do that with a, obviously even a halfway bigger budget. It was a grind, that one, I tell you, it was a grind.
Well, what I say is, never mind it having a second season. Steve, I think that's a show that should have a nominate 5.
Now's the time to nominate 5.
Nominate 5?
Yes, nominate 5. Not 3 or 4 or 6 or 9. Now's the time to nominate 5.
And if he was worried about the content of the show before, now he definitely is.
Oh, the joys!
The joys. It was a decent enough segue.
Yeah, I'd give it about 6 out of 10.
So Steve, explain what nominate 5 is.
Okay, well, nominate 5 is the part of the show where we invite our guest, if we have one, to nominate 5 things that they particularly like about either their work or the industry in general. It varies from guest to guest. And this week, we have asked Brian Krause to nominate his 5, and he's kind of already touched on this one.
Uh-oh.
So, seeing as though Brian loves his Comic Cons, so we wanted
Indeed.
to touch on him to nominate his 5 favorite meetings of other celebrities, other actors, other talents at a Comic Con event. Are you ready, Brian?
Yes, I thought you were going to ask me my 5 favorite dinosaurs I've worked with, but that's fine. This is better.
Hey, they're
My
older
favourite eggs
actors.
you've rescued. Yeah.
They're older actors. Let's not call them that. Okay, then. So starting at number 5, Brian, who have you got for us?
Billy Boyd.
Pippin.
From Lord of the Rings. Probably one of the nicest, fun people I met. I met him down in Australia when Sean Astin was down there and had a chance to hang out for a minute. And he just had wonderful energy and a great human.
And he is also there at Telford.
He is at Telford, so it'll be nice to see him again. I got to say Lou Ferrigno.
Oh, yeah, Big Lou.
Big Lou, because, I grew up on the Hulk, right?
Yeah.
And he was it. And I have a funny story for him because one of my very first acting jobs, I did a background. I was an extra on a Lou Ferrigno movie in 1988. I didn't get paid. They treated us like dirt. We didn't even get to eat. And it was like a really horrible experience.
Yeah, that sounds like
Right?
being an extra, yeah.
Yeah, and so when I would see Lou at some of these different cons, and I was like, man, this is going to be a great icebreaker. And I'm like, Lou, hey, man, great meeting you. And he's a great guy. And I was like, Lou, okay, so 1988, I did this movie, and I was extra. And he looks at it, he's like, which one was it? I've been in 100 movies.
The one where you weren't green.
I'm like, I don't know, Lou. I'm not sure this one made it out.
It was in the 99 that didn't get released that year. Brilliant.
So, okay then, who's number 3?
Number 3, I didn't get a chance to spend much time, and I think I mentioned him earlier, but Mads Mikkelsen, I have to say I was most impressed with probably one of the largest stars I've seen at a con, besides Goldblum and a couple others who I didn't really meet, but Mads went out of his way to introduce himself to everybody, and he was just so humble and generous, and he said he spoke to everyone, and I'm a big fan of his work. Just to see how genuine he was as a person, I was quite impressed.
Okay, number 2.
I hate to say it, but the guy that just recently went to space.
Shatner?
Shatner, come on. I grew up with I never felt the ability to share any sort of Star Trek story with him. But I gotta say, I think just, as a kind of a little feather in my cap, like, hey, I met Shatner.
Yeah. So did Tommy Hinkley.
Oh!
On re-entry.
But he strikes you when you're in the room with him. It's like, oh, that guy, he knows he's the man. Like, he's just got a presence. He's the captain, and I think he believes it and he lives it. And, he's a walking legend.
Well, all right then. Who is the number one most awesome person that you've met at a convention?
Well, I pause at mentioning girls because the ones I would mention are single, and I'm like, hey, maybe they're at the next show, and that's creepy. That's just creepy.
Okay.
But I have a list. The next five. I have to say, one of the greatest human beings I've met, and I met him at a show, and I've been fortunate to spend a few cons with him, is Matt Ryan. He's freaking awesome. He's actually from, I guess, Wales, Cardiff, and great actor, great human being. He's probably one of the coolest dudes out there. And again, humble, nice, and he plays the devil. He's fantastic.
Yeah. So that is a great list.
That is great. By the way, Tommy Hinkley, funny enough, messaged me and said that you and his wife Tracy worked on a pilot that was written by Dominic Dunn. The Rich family consisted of Barry Bostic, Michelle Phillips, Tracy, Stephen Caffrey, and you.
Wow. That was, man, that's a while ago. That's amazing.
Yeah, and he says, can't remember if you had any scenes together, but you both did Earth Angel.
What?
I know.
Wow.
That's how small Hollywood is. So Tommy Hinkley says to say hi and hope you're doing well. We got to bring you two back on together. That'd be a hilarious show.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I tell you, there's a great story, too. You're behind the scenes in the base camp, and there's Eric Estrada walking, and, they have the police guys that are watching traffic, and they're usually motorcycle cops. Mm-hmm. And I captured the moment that nobody's ever seen. And it was Eric Estrada walking, nobody's around, leaving base camp, and I just watch him, and he's kind of looking at the bike. And you can see him, and he just takes this moment, and he's just staring at the bike. Like, I don't know where he went in his head, but it was just like this really slow-mo of him, like, remembering. Like, I was like, wow, I got it. I was like, oh, man, if I could get a picture of that, it would have been worth something, but...
I was hoping that story was going to be he suddenly jumped on the bike and then had a police chase, OJ style, all the way through LA.
It was nice catching him in that private moment of reminiscing.
No, that is pretty cool. I think after this show, even more people are going to fall in love with Leo from Charmed.
Oh, without doubt, yeah.
I think just having you on here today and just getting to know you, I've got to know you over the last couple of weeks. Absolutely amazing guy. And you deserve all of the success that will come to you. I'm hoping that we're going to work together at some point in the future. So
that would be fantastic. Well, I'd love to just meet you guys in person as well. And I appreciate you having me on and being interested at all. So
it has been a fantastic episode. It really has. Talking to you has just been absolutely phenomenal. You're a funny guy. You're a talented guy. You've got a ton of great stories. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
And what have you got coming up? Have you got anything that's due to be released soon?
Let's see. I think there's a Lifetime love story movie that's coming out.
Is it You and the Egg?
No. I didn't do it. It's the egg is in search of who cracked it.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm the male in the Lifetime movie, so I'm the bad guy. I cracked it. Other than that, I did a horror movie over the summer for a friend of mine who wrote and directed her own horror movie, which is fantastic. I play this kind of meth head, kind of scared southern redneck. And that'll probably come out it'll be a few months. Then I did a movie called Basement over the pandemic where 5, 6 neighbors are stuck during basically World War III has begun, and I'm the only one with a basement that everybody can dive into in New York. And we bring in all our neighbors, and it's my African American neighbor, it's my Mexican neighbor, it's my super Trump supporting gun toting neighbor from upstairs, it's my Middle Eastern neighbor who runs a shop, and all five of us, six of us get in there, and it's this how we culturally put blame and judgments on each other, and we kind of learn how to, we're all in this together, people. And
that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
How do we get out? And it's kind of really a state of affairs of where America's kind of been the last couple of years.
So where can people see Basement?
So it's getting ready to come out now, and I guess they're trying to sell it. The trailer's up on Instagram, The Basement, the movie, and we'll see. So I guess they're trying to sell it now, and we'll see where that gets to. But it's a great look at human. It's a character piece. We're all in a basement just talking, and it's nice. There's some really great actors in it, and then me. this seems to have a theme in my career. Like, just put them with some really good people. And then I just finished a Prison Break movie with Louis Mandylor, and I'm kind of the mastermind of breaking out of this prison, and he's the man set on stopping me. It's a fun little action movie. We just wrapped up actually last weekend, so I imagine the next 6-8 months it'll be somewhere to watch, and that'll be fun. I haven't played that role yet, where I break out of prison and kind of play the evil mastermind, if you will, the supervillain. And I tell you, I took a little after Rami Malek and what he did in this latest Bond, and how he played that. I was kind of impressed on him playing an evildoer, and so I might have stolen a couple things from him.
That's cool. That's a hell of a lot of stuff to look at. See, you've got more to promote than some of the guests that we have on.
Yeah.
Just like waiting for the next thing.
Yeah.
So don't take anything away from yourself, Brian. You've got an
Thank
amazing
you.
career that is keeping going. And we just cannot wait to see it grow even further and further. So you've got to keep us in the loop of anything that is getting released of yours so we can promote it for you.
Oh, thank you. I know I'm so horrible at social media and putting it out there, and I'm probably one of the worst self-promoters. I think, like you said, Steve, it's like taking a break from social media for my personal wellness is, it's a tough place to navigate. And I think to anybody and all the listeners out there, it's, we can so easily get caught up in social media and believing it as a reality. And, sometimes you got to put it down and actually just go outside or talk to friends and do the thing, because I know for me, I'd get caught up on it, and I would start judging myself against other people based off of a picture that they've edited 50 times. Like, I'm not ripped. Oh, they're at that place. I'm not there. I'm at home. Oh, I think we got to be very careful with that and how we allow it into our lives. But I'm going to try and make a push to get back out there and, have a healthy push of interaction with social media. So we'll see. I'm old.
Yep, well, you're not in a box yet.
That's true.
And speaking of which...
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
I was so waiting for that segue to come in.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely nailed it.
Thank you.
Explain what's in the box is while I do it.
Okay, then, What's in the Box is the part of the show where Andy tries to improve my movie education and get me away from my Xbox, where I spend actually quite little time these days. And he tries to get me into more highbrow, more critically acclaimed cinematic fare. And so to do that, he's going to put his hand into a box and pull out the name of a movie which he's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, if I have seen it, then he keeps pulling out names out of a box until we find one that I haven't seen, and then I have to go away and watch it the night before we record our next episode. So, Andrew.
Yes?
What do you have for me?
I've pulled out the Tom McCarthy movie The Visitor, from 2007, would you believe, that actually stars Richard Jenkins. And it's a movie where Richard Jenkins, he plays a college professor. He travels to New York. He's attending a conference, and he finds two young immigrants living in his apartment. And that's all I'm going to tell you. You've got to watch the movie and review it.
Right. Okay, The Visitor. Well, I've never even heard of that one, let alone seen it. So, yeah, there we go.
Okay. Well, it's been an amazing show, Brian. Absolutely amazing guest. You are welcome back anytime you feel like you just want to come and hang out on the show and have some fun.
Yeah, it's been great just having a laugh.
It has. Thank you so much. I'm smiling for sure.
Well,
my cheeks are hurting. Now I'm gonna go get more chocolate.
Yes, that should power you enough to live through this dismal, shitty English climate. So until you escape and go and meet up with Mark Rolston and have some fun.
That's funny.
But
awesome.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come on. It has been a real pleasure, and we look forward to the response from all of your legions of fans, as well as the people who are yet to discover you. And we look forward to your career just skyrocketing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bless you both.
Well, I guess that's everything now, so it just remains to say a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me also.
Take care, everybody. Take care.
The cat's actually scratched my hand as well.
Sleepwalkers.